Hi, it's Paul, and today I'm an old man with the metal parts bender, and we're going to talk about a couple of little bits and pieces I've made for it that make my life a bit easier. I'll do some close-ups with the phone at the same time, but most of it you'll see on the overhead. So to start with, I don't use a floor-mounted machine. There are many of you out there with a floor-mounted machine. Maybe you've got space in your workshop. I definitely haven't. So I don't use a floor-mounted machine. I put mine on my workbench. It's a rolling workbench, which comes with its own issues. If I'm rolling or bending something heavy enough, then it moves about. But what I do to mount it to the workbench is I have it bolted to this piece of plywood, and my workbench is a MFT style bench with the MFT pattern holes drilled. I forget what the dimensions are. I did it with a thing called an LJK jig and made it all up myself. And I have many different items. I've got vices, I think I've got 2 vices, I've got other bits and pieces that all just lay on the top of the workbench. And I drop some pins through, in my case 20mm bolts, because they fit perfectly in the 20mm holes, and I'm too tight to buy the bench dog type things at 40 quid a pin or whatever. I used to get these from work, and they are perfect. So that's it mounted to the bench. If I'm bending something particularly heavy, then I roll the bench outside and I put a ratchet strap round it and I strap it to the wall outside. I've got 2 eyelets in the wall. I'll take you a photograph of them. I've got 2 eyelets, rule bolt eyelets screwed into the wall. I put a ratchet strap round it and I strap it to the wall so it can't move anywhere. And that works fine, not just for using bending stuff on here, but if I'm using the vise or whatever, that works quite well. So that's the mounting and the use thereof. I've done a complete video on clamping and why I think clamping is extremely necessary. A couple of other things I've done, and I'll jump over to the phone now just to tour you around it. So I ground off the edges of the lever arm because I found they were catching. I ground off the back of the pin, the securing pin that I use in the lever arm, because I found that when I used my homemade clamp, I needed the arm to sit back into the frame further. A couple of times I've stripped it all down, cleaned all the pins up, lubricated them and put them back together, which of course is messy, but it's still very useful. I linished, filed, whatever, this section back because again this was very uneven, but the whole thing is actually quite twisted. It's not a great piece of machinery. It is what it is. It's cheap and nasty, if you like, really. It's sloppy, and what I found out is that the pin, this front pin, actually sits sideways. Would I do anything about it? No, I'd have to heat it up and straighten it and all the rest of it, and I just can't be bothered. I don't need that higher quality of bracketry or anything like that, so I'm not too worried. But what I also did make was 10mm spacers. First of all, I had these. These are Broadchurch. No, that was a TV program. spacers, 10mm spacers, 10mm plastic spacers. What I had was an old neodymium magnet kicking around that I just squashed into the hole in the middle of it, and it sits quite nicely on there and holds itself in place. What I then did, because I thought I'd be clever, is I made some more 10mm spacers out of 10mm flat and put a pin on them so they'd locate into the framework. Let's move that out of the way. As you can see, I've got two of them. I can swing them around, and they did have a pin in each end to locate them thoroughly. But of course, then what happens is when I move the arm, it runs into that and it causes me a problem. So I only ever use one on the back end, and I use the magnetic one on the forward end, if you like, the start of the bend. What do I use them for? I use them to keep my workpiece metal level, because if you don't have them, then your workpiece, depending on where it's positioned, will overbalance and rock about all over the place, and it just adds another bit of sloppiness and another bit of inaccuracy. So 10mm spacers, whatever you like. I could take the pins out of them and just use them as a bit of flat. Works perfectly well. And there you have it. That's the modifications I've made. So, hope something in there's a little bit of use for you. If it is, great. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.